Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome. We're live from the Solstice Arts Theatre in Navan in County Meath, the home of Age Friendly Ireland. We're absolutely delighted to be here today to share with you a spotlight on Age Friendly Ireland and how we translate policy to practice. We're going to be doing a series of webinars which will be based around the 8 domains of the WHO's Global Age Friendly Cities and Communities Framework. And today it is my pleasure that we are starting with housing. Housing has advanced quite a lot in the last number of years. And what we want to share with you today is how policy decisions and policy strategies can be translated into age-friendly housing at local level. I'm joined by all my colleagues today, a very eclectic mix. We have Mark Harrington, my colleague in the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme. Delighted to have Andrew Harrington, the Assistant Principal in Sláinte Care in the Department of Health, which we're going to hear more about later on. My colleague Barry Lynch, Director of Services in Meath County Council, and also Chair of an implementation subcommittee that is actually directly translating policy into practice. And Sarah Newell, their age-friendly technical advisor, and many other titles, Sarah, that we're going to go through later on from Limerick City and County Council. As I say, this is the first in a series of thematic areas, and housing is so important in the context of, I suppose, social determinants for older people. We've just launched a Housing for All policy in Ireland, which is one of the most ambitious housing strategies of its kind since the turn of this government, and we're really, really excited that age-friendly housing is going to be part of that. In advance, I'm your MC, by the way, today. My name is Catherine McGuigan, Chief Officer in Age Friendly Ireland. And as most of you know, Age Friendly Ireland is a shared service hosted in the local government sector. A key element of today is to share our practices with other countries. And we know we have a very wide audience here today. We're delighted that we have some of our Irish colleagues and newcomers. But most importantly, we have all our colleagues across the world who are coming in to learn today about what we're doing that has embedded age-friendly principles in what we're doing. In 2019, Age Friendly Ireland were awarded a lovely accolade from the WHO when they visited us in County Meath and bestowed affiliation to every local authority in Ireland where they were part and signed up to the global framework. This was a very, very big milestone in our last decade. And Age Friendly Ireland in its current format has been delivering and translatable outcomes for older people for over 12 years. And therefore, our critical link with the WHO has been a key element that has underpinned that. So it's really with great pleasure today that we're doing this in partnership with our partners in the WHO and the UN Decade of Healthy Ageing. And we'll be talking more about that and hearing more about that as we go through this thematic series. From a housekeeping perspective, I just want to sort of let you know that we're going to be using Slido for your questions. We will have a question and answer session towards the end. I really, really would welcome any opportunity for you to send in questions, whether it's about the presentations, whether it's about the shared service, and how you can access our resources and guides. And we'd like as well that we can learn from yourselves. So if there's any information you want to share with us through Slido, please do that. We'd really encourage you to use the Twitter handle today, all up behind me, Age Friendly Ireland, and also Aging in Ireland and Policy to Practice as your hashtags. As I say, it's really, really important that we get a bit of traction and get the word out there about what we're sharing today. And it's important then that we use social media to do that and tag any of your colleagues across the world that might be able to share those learnings. So without further ado, I am really, really pleased that because our theme is housing today, that we have a welcome address from our Minister of State at the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, Minister Peter Burke. Minister Burke has been a fantastic champion of Age Friendly and indeed has supported a number of launches, resources and implementation actions that are arising through the Housing Options Policy. And we'll hear more of that from my colleague Barry and indeed Sarah. But today, in order to actually open our session, we have a welcome address from Minister of State, Peter Burke.
I am delighted to welcome both our domestic and international audience members today to this inaugural webinar in a series that will explore Ireland's response to the 8 domains of the World Health Organization's Age-Friendly Cities and Communities programme. Ireland is uniquely positioned as the first age-friendly country in the world, with full affiliation across all administrative areas at national and local level to the World Health Organization's Global Age-Friendly Cities and Communities programme. This webinar series is an opportunity to spotlight Ireland's age-friendly programme and share our learnings internationally, while deepening our friendships and partnerships with age-friendly colleagues in other countries. The webinar series has been developed in partnership with the World Health Organization, and I would like to acknowledge the WHO and ALANA officer in particular for the support they provide to the National Age-Friendly Programme here in Ireland. The sub-theme of the webinar series is Policy to Practice. The webinars will demonstrate how the age-friendly programme works at both strategic level to inform policy and operates as an implementing infrastructure on the ground to deliver on national policy objectives. Today's session takes a focus on housing, looking at what we are doing in Ireland to ensure that our older citizens can live in a community of their choosing with dignity and independence as they age. We have a vision of an age-friendly Ireland in which older people can live long and healthy lives, participate in their communities, and have a range of housing options and health supports to make this possible. As national and local policymakers, in collaboration with all stakeholders, we are acutely aware that it is our job to put in place the structures to achieve these aims. Supporting the development of appropriate housing for the ageing population has been a key priority for my department. Collaborative working has been at the heart of this process. Our 2019 housing options for our ageing population policy statement was jointly developed by two government departments, the Department of Health and my own department. And the implementation of these actions is a shared responsibility of both departments. In doing so, we are fortunate to have on board the expertise of organisations such as the Housing Agency, the Centre for Excellence in Universal Design, and Irish Council for Social Housing, among others, in housing options. We committed to 40 tangible and time-bound actions to achieve a more evidence-based, integrated system of mapping and delivering housing for older people with health supports where required that meet the differing needs. The actions are founded on principles which research has shown are essential to the development of age-friendly societies. Aging in place as the first principle of the framework is not just about the bricks and mortar of the dwelling, but focused on the development of an environmentally sustainable and supportive life for older people within a well-planned neighbourhood located close to services and amenities. Next, the provision of well-designed quality housing within lifetime communities guided by universal design principles of accessibility, flexibility and sustainability. Well-designed housing and attractive civic spaces enhance the quality of life of all, but particularly of those who are ageing. A further principle on which the framework is built considers the manner in which assistive technologies can be critical intervention in allowing older people to remain at home. These technologies can be incorporated as an integral part of the design of a house from the very start. Technology for assisted living continues to develop at pace and will be an invaluable tool in enhancing the lives of older people. And finally, the important key principle of social connectedness for older people, and in that context, the need for a collaborative approach by agencies to the provision of services. The desire to age in place is often a wish to remain in a particular community which the older person has connections in the community, and this is vital to their choice of dwelling. The programme for government, published in 2020, further committed to measures that support aging in place. And recently, the government's new Housing for All policy seeks to honour the commitments of that programme for government and develop our approach further, including key developments such as local housing delivery, action plans which will plan for a dedicated social housing provision appropriate to the needs of older people, aligned to the levels of assessed need. I commend our team in Age-Friendly Ireland here and who work and have been working to advance our age-friendly agenda internationally. Age friendliness is all about creating types of communities where older people and everyone can lead active, healthy lives and can participate and contribute. Enabling environments such as housing are critical to the quality of life that people will experience in older age. My department has built a strong working relationship with Age Friendly Ireland that continues to grow. I would like to take this opportunity to wish Catherine and the Age Friendly team all the best with today's event and for the series of 8 webinars that will run through to June 2022. I am certain that Ireland, as the first age-friendly country in the world, will continue to be seen as an international example of best practice.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you very much for those warm words. I think what's really important, going back to our theme, policy and to practice, and it's going to be core to everything that we do across all these seminars, has been captured by Minister Burke, and that's the collaboration and the support of all the different departments and all the different partners together working on this will really help us to get that message across to all our international partners. Policy being translated into practice will inform future policy development, and that's a key theme that we'll be revisiting. Our next message is from Alana Officer. I'm delighted that Alana has given us a welcome address from the World Health Organization, on which everything is this is hinged. Alana is the unit head in demographic change and healthy aging, and indeed was the representative from the WHO that visited us in 2019 to bestow the accolade on all the 31 local authority programs across the country. So a welcome address from Alana Officer.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And on behalf of the World Health Organization, I want to welcome you to this seminar series. The COVID-19 pandemic has taken a really heavy toll on the physical and mental health of older people and highlighted the seriousness of existing gaps in policies, systems, and services. Concerted global action on healthy aging is urgently needed to ensure that older people can fulfill their potential in dignity and equality and in a healthy environment. The United Nations has declared 2021 to 2030 the decade of healthy aging. 4 action areas are prioritised to improve the lives of older people, their families and communities. Working to combat ageism, building age-friendly communities, providing integrated and person-centred healthcare, and quality long-term care make up the 4. The decade is an incredible opportunity to build on what already is working. And one such example is the work being done in over 51 countries to create age-friendly cities and communities. Of those 51 countries, Ireland was the first WHO recognised age-friendly country. Creating age-friendly communities, cities, counties and countries takes time, and it is only achieved when national, subnational and local levels of government work together with older people and other stakeholders. Ireland's managed to sustain its age-friendly work for a decade, and during this time Ireland faced really serious austerity, showing that concerted action can indeed be achieved even when resources are tight. Ireland is an example of what is possible to achieve in a decade. So I'm thrilled that today we launched the webinar series From Policy to Practice. This series is a wonderful opportunity to learn from Ireland's wealth of experience, and I hope for all of those listening to take away lessons that can inform your own work to make communities better places in which to grow older. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alana, and a fantastic welcome address from the WHO, which really helps to set the context. And I know Alana will be asking a number of her colleagues in the WHO to work with us for the rest of the series to give their key messages. So thank you for that. Our next presentation is from my colleague, Barry Lynch. Barry is Director of Services in Meath County Council, and in doing that obviously has the brief for a number of different directorates, but mainly the Housing Authority and the delivery of housing in County Meath. His multitude of roles includes he's chair of the implementation group under the Housing Options for Our Age and Population Policy, which, have you heard from Minister Burke, has now translatable actions in Housing for All, which is quite a significant achievement. So Barry's presentation today is going to focus, I suppose, really on coming back to our theme of policy into practice and how, when we set actions and goals, in cross-departmental strategies that they actually can be delivered and have positive impacts on older people. So welcome our presentation from Barry Lynch.
Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon or evening or morning, everyone, depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Barry Lynch and I'm Director of Housing, Community, Libraries, Arts and Culture in Meath County Council. I work very closely with Catherine on the strategic issues to do with the age-friendly shared service. Most of my time is actually devoted to housing and at national level I also represent the sector on a couple of different bodies in relation to housing for older people and people with disabilities and the policy implementation in relation to those. And maybe just a word first about the Age Friendly Ireland programme. It operated under a private company for a number of years before coming into the local government sector on an interim basis in 2017. In 2018, then Meath County Council were successful in their bid to host the service on a permanent basis, and that has been embedded in the local government sector now of Meath County Council since then. The service has gone from strength to strength. Initially, it was just one employee, Catherine, was working in it, but we're now up to a total of 28 staff, and the most recent additions are the people working in the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme, and Mark Harrington, my colleague, will tell you a little bit more about that later on. One significant milestone was the World Health Organization accreditation, which was achieved in 2019, and they've included the photograph there of the occasion at Slane Castle here in County Meath. It's a bit of nostalgia there because that's the last time we were actually able to meet in person on one of the few occasions. But anyway, to go on to a bit more about the service itself, I suppose you asked the question, why do we do what we do? Well, in reality, it's about demographics. So looking at the first slide here, you'll see the demographic challenge that Ireland as a country is facing. So the population, the last census we had was in 2016. So the population at that time of people over 65 years of age was about 630,000, and that's due to go up to 1.6 million by 2051. Also, we have the population over 80 years of age was 147,000, and that's due to go up to over 500,000 by 2051. So the demographic change, you'll see the life expectancy is increasing and has actually increased by 30 years since 1926. And males between 2016 and 2051 is expected to go from 79.3 years to 85.6 years. And for females, that'll go from 83.3 years up to 88.3 years. So with people living longer, there'll obviously be a bigger demand for services, and housing and healthcare are two of the biggest challenges identified. But the other thing to bear in mind, it's important to emphasise that the ageing population is also a positive feature of society. And older people are significant contributors to the community, socially and economically. Preparing society to be age-friendly is not only about responding to increased demand for services, but also about being able to harness the knowledge, experience and contribution of older people. So how do we translate policy into practice, which is what we're talking about today? So age-friendly principles have been incorporated into a wide number of policy areas, and you can see from the diagram there what we fed into in terms of the National Planning Framework, the National Development Plan, Rebuilding Ireland, Housing for All. Some of the more recent ones there are on the right-hand side of the slide. So you see the Programme for Government, Our Shared Future, Housing for All, as I mentioned there, Housing Options for Our Ageing Population in February 2019, which I'm going to focus on today. Also the Sláinte Care Action Plan, and the Healthy Age Friendly Homes, which has stemmed from that, and you'll hear a bit more in the next presentation on that, the National Planning Framework and National Positive Ageing Strategy. So the focus today anyway is going to be on the Housing Options for Our Ageing Population, which came out in February 2019, how the policy was developed and some of the key outcomes that Age Friendly Ireland has helped to bring about. So on the next slide, the housing options for our ageing population. The strength of the policy is that it was developed jointly by the Department of Housing and Health under the respective ministers, Damien English, who was looking after housing at the time, and Jim Daly in the Department of Health, who was looking after mental health and older people. And that gave an impetus to the development of the policy. Wide consultation took place with all the stakeholders, including a major event hosted by both ministers in September 2018 at Farmley House in Dublin. So the policy was based on a number of key principles. So there were 6 key principles for housing for ageing population. One was ageing in place, which, as it suggests, people as they get older would like to age in their own communities. The use of assistive technology, which obviously can facilitate people to stay in their own home for longer. The importance of staying socially connected within your community. Working together focuses on the collaboration between particularly departments of housing and health and all the other stakeholders involved. We want to promote sustainable lifetime housing. So you'll be looking at issues like universal design and promoting that generally throughout the building sector. Also, we want to see projects to support urban renewal, so regeneration of our towns and villages will also be an important part of this. So the principles were derived primarily from and are reinforced by the various research findings, and they're outlined in the document, and also learnings and experiences from a number of case studies. So one of the good things about the housing options document, and I would encourage you to read it, is there are quite a number of case studies of age-friendly housing, and they're certainly worth having a look at. And the principles here will inform the strategic thinking, and that will evolve over time. So then there are quite a number of actions came under this particular policy. So there are a number of different categories, but they could be divided, I suppose, into health-led actions, housing-led actions, and also joint department actions. So a total of 40 actions were proposed under the plan, and they're divided into the 7 categories that are shown in the graphics here. The central category itself, in white there, contained a number of overarching actions, which, while other categories provide specific actions in relation to items such as tackling fuel poverty, interagency cooperation or training and other issues, developing tools to prioritise the location of age-friendly housing, ensuring older people get the supports they need to age in place, and providing choices on how older people meet their housing needs. So the key category, if the policy document is to have an effect, is the need to maintain momentum. So there's one key action listed there under maintaining momentum, and that was to establish an independently chaired implementation group to progress the actions and to ensure an integrated approach to the delivery. The importance of driving implementation was recognised by both ministers and senior department officials, and that led to the establishment of an implementation group under the independent chair, Mr. Leo Cairns, who is the senior manager in the healthcare sector. So just a quick word about the goals and objectives of the implementation group. Obviously, challenges and opportunities arose from the programme. I suppose one is confirming and developing a new attitude to ageing and what it means. The objective is not to extend a person's life, but also to allow more people to live well for longer in the most appropriate setting. Big emphasis on quality of life, also the range of choice that older people have to meet their housing needs. We obviously had an agreed joined up policy statement establishing clear framework for policy and action and a plan to evolve and develop that policy. So, and the acknowledgement of the input of all sectors was very much to the fore in the policy statement. But the key thing was the voice of the older people was represented throughout the subgroup structure. And coming to the next slide, it's just about the implementation structure for the group. So it was set up under the Minister for Housing and Urban Renewal and Minister for Older People, Ministers English and Daly. And it was initially divided into 3 subgroups. Subgroup 1, which was to do with building and planning related aspects of housing with support. And I chaired that particular one on behalf of the County and City Management Association. With subgroup 2, which dealt with health and social care aspects of supported housing. And that has been chaired by various principal officers in the Department of Health. And subgroup 3, integration and overarching aspects of housing with supports, that was chaired by the principal officer in the Department of Housing at the time, and that has continued with the new holders of the role. So the actions were divided up between each subgroup. The subgroups themselves would have included subject matter experts from government departments, state agencies and advocacy groups. Catherine represented Age Friendly Ireland, subgroups 2 and 3, and I would have worked on subgroup 1. An additional subgroup 4 was established, and that was initially chaired by our former colleague Jack Keys, to deal with the development of a GAS-based site selection tool. And what that will do is identify sites that are suitable for age-friendly developments. So that is something that is currently under development, and I'm chairing a separate subgroup in relation to that. So, and what each of the subgroups does then is works with their own members, progresses the actions, and then reports back to plenary sessions of the implementation group. So, as I said, there were 40 actions overall. They were divided into initially the 3 subgroups, and I have some slides there just outlining how they were divided up. Subgroup 1, which I chaired, included a number of actions, including the investigating the sites for housing for older people. That was a mapping project, which was referred to there earlier. There was a develop a design for life. So my colleagues in Age Friendly, Emer Coveney and Sylvia McCarthy would have been involved with those actions for the mapping project and also the design for life. And what we have there now is an age-friendly rating tool where an individual can go along and rate their own house in terms of its age friendliness and what modifications might be needed. There was also other actions around developing contribution exemptions, which is there for further consideration with the department, ensuring that 50% of apartments are in excess of minimum sizes, and that's included in the department's design manual for quality housing. Also, the policy that's been adopted is that 30% of all new dwellings will incorporate universal design principles. So that has been worked through initially in the social housing sector. Meath County Council is running a pilot in Carey Street and Kells, which is both regeneration and also developing new build accommodation. So we're going to test out the universal design principles there. There's also another objective to develop and roll out an awareness campaign around the benefits of universal design. So we have built on something that was done by our colleagues in Fingal County Council previously, where they developed 10 features of age-friendly housing, and that has been developed and enhanced under this present programme here, and that publication is one of the resources that's now available. We've also, Age Friendly have developed guidelines for both primary care centres and also a pre-planning consultation guide for long-term residential care settings. So also renewable energy and efficient energy systems is a key part of it, so that to combat fuel poverty and ensure that old people can age in place and live in comfort. And that has been tackled by the introduction of a new building regulations by the department in November 2019, which have addressed those particular areas. Another action that will progress between the departments there is crime prevention through environmental design, and that will be incorporating good practice into future developments to ensure that it makes developments less amenable to antisocial behaviour. So a lot of those actions have developed under the subgroup, and progress has been made under each heading. I've just included the slides under the other subgroups, and I'll probably focus on 1 or 2 of the actions that came out of those later. So you see subgroup 2 and subgroup 3. Subgroup 2 headed up by the Department of Health, and subgroup 3, which was headed up by the Department of Housing. And one of the things that's come out under subgroup 3 there, quite a lot of work was done around right sizing policy and research, and Age Friendly have produced a policy template for incorporating right sizing policies in each local authority, and Housing for All has also committed to a national right sizing policy. So just to give a flavour there, the next slide about the Age Friendly Ireland collaboration in this policy, and you will see a list of all the actions there that Age Friendly has been involved in and produced resources. So that matrix there has shown the level of contribution of the Age Friendly programme to the policy and its implementation. So the next slide then just gives an idea of the number of resources developed by Age Friendly Ireland in response to the housing options policy. So you see there the housing and the public realm training, and that's been delivered to government departments, local authorities and other interested organisations. And that has a focus on also the environments around age-friendly housing and what's needed in terms of even street furniture and just general design. And it's usually aimed at engineers, planners, architects, technical staff, in particular in local authorities, basically to get them thinking in that way. Now, one of the innovations there with the COVID pandemic is that's gone fully online as well. Another initiative was the age-friendly technical advisors, which I might refer to a bit more later. The right sizing research I referred to, the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme, the primary care centre guidelines, the mapping services for site selection, and the decision support tool associated with that. We've also got the rating system for age-friendly housing and referred to there earlier. The 10 features for age-friendly housing design. Another aspect was financial workshops were held with the banking sector to look at the issue of funding for retrofit and improvements that older people might need to make to their houses so that they can live in them for longer. And there'll be a number of participating sites there. So one of the key initiatives under this whole policy was the age-friendly housing website, agefriendlyhomes.ie, and I'll come to that in a minute. So anyway, you can see from the list above that Catherine and her team in Age Friendly Ireland have been instrumental in progressing the various actions under the plan. And I'll focus on a small number of these in the next few slides. So that's just a graphic of the resources that are available that can be seen on the website. And I'll let you browse those at your leisure. Just to focus in on Action 1.3. And that was to provide a high-level blueprint for approved housing bodies, cooperatives and local authorities and private developers that will include design templates for the purpose of constructing new older personal housing developments or refurbishing existing facilities, a guidance manual on the funding mechanisms to deliver those developments, and guidance on early engagement and planning processes with relevant agencies regarding health and social care services, and the findings of the evaluation of the Dublin City Age-Friendly Housing with Support model when available. And this is encapsulated, this was delivered by means of a website, and it was developed in response to Action 1.3, and it's a home for a lot of the resources developed during the implementation for housing options for aging population. So the website, which is delivering a lot of this, is called agefriendlyhomes.ie, and it's been supported by Age Friendly Ireland in conjunction with the Housing Agency, and Age Friendly Ireland are now responsible for the ongoing maintenance and updates to the site. The initial content was provided by over 60 contributing stakeholders, and the website was launched in June of this year. So it's now up and running, and it's a great repository of information on all age-friendly housing related matters. I also referred earlier to the Housing and Public Realm training, which is delivered to local authority staff, developers, Construction Industry Federation, the department staff, and on board Planal, among others. So as I said earlier, with the COVID pandemic, we had to develop an online module for that. That's now fully in place, and it's incorporating best practice, thinking ahead, and modules on universal design from the Centre for Universal Design and the crime prevention through environmental design from An Garda Síochána, which is the Irish Police. And a key thing that happened just recently was that this programme has actually got CPD accreditation. That's from the Institute of Engineers in Ireland. So people can get points for their continuous professional development by attending this course. So that's a development that we're very pleased with. So another initiative there, which was launched in December of last year, was the Age-Friendly Housing Technical Advisors. So they're now a key point of contact for any matters to do with age-friendly housing technical queries around designing for life and universal design principles, and they can progress referrals and queries from a range of sectors. And they can provide clients with information on key contexts within the local authority to discuss issues and solutions around age-friendly housing and public realm works. And they have all the information and models to go and practice on that. So this resource is now in each local authority in the country, and there's someone in situ who can assist anyone who's interested in developing age-friendly housing. And just a word about the current status of the implementation. The implementation group itself is to be wound up by the end of 2021, and the final report will be published at that stage. So there are a number of actions that will continue beyond the life of the implementation group. For example, the development of the GAS decision support tool, which is to be completed by mid-2022, and actions in relation to the promotion of universal design in housing construction. We'll be looking to encourage the adoption of universal design in the building industry generally. The other key thing which I referred to earlier is that a number of resources have now been developed by Age Friendly Ireland in response to the actions in the Housing Options Policy document. The building regulations have also been updated to provide for more energy efficient homes for the benefit of all householders, but older people in particular. And that was by means of regulations in late 2019. So the other key thing is that the new Housing for All plan, which was launched by the government in September 2021, commits to the continuation of the housing options policy. So just briefly on Housing for All, which is now the current plan for the sector. So essentially what's going to happen there, they've pledged to continue to support the development of age-friendly homes portal and the website. So we all have, as local authorities, have to produce a local authority housing delivery action plan, which will be done by the end of this year. And that will set out dedicated social housing provision appropriate to the needs of older people and how that's going to be delivered, matching the scale and extent of the housing need for older people, which has been identified. So local authorities will be considering the housing needs of older people. We'll all be preparing a housing needs demand assessment, and we'll be feeding that into our local housing strategies and delivery action plans. Also, the other thing that will happen under Housing for All is review of the range of housing grants for the suitable adaptation of existing housing. And we'll continue the delivery of age-friendly housing and public realm training, which to cross-sectoral stakeholders. And that will promote greater awareness as well and foster the knowledge transfer across the sector. We'll support the pilots of innovative forms of housing redesign and reorganisation to deliver rental accommodation and supply along with support for older homeowners. And obviously housing options, which I referred to extensively there, does a commitment within Housing for All to implement that into the future. Another key action which will come out of that is amendment of the Nursing Home Support Act scheme of 2009. This is to combat an issue where houses are left vacant for extended periods while people are in nursing homes and they're unable to sell or rent. These will be participants in what's called the Fair Deal scheme in nursing homes. But in order to better manage stock and that, amendments will be made to allow to free up the supply of those houses and not have them lying idle. So that's they're the key changes in the new government's new current housing policy, which will follow on what has been done already under Housing Options for Ageing Population. I'd like to thank Catherine and Age Friendly Ireland for the opportunity to speak with you today. And if there are any aspects of what you've just seen there that you would like to discuss, please feel free to ask any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. That's just a wonderful overview that encapsulates everything that we're trying to get across here in terms of policy to practice. I suppose a number of things that Barry and I have talked about oftentimes is the critical success factors in terms of the implementation, because in the last 2 years, there has been significant achievements, as you can see from the presentation. I think as well as the collaboration, one of the things that stood out for me was in preparation of the production of the strategy, the huge amount of consultation that took place and both departments coming together to ensure that everybody was involved in the collation of those actions. And key to that was our older people's councils and older people in the main. And I think it was really, really welcome when both ministers asked for the implementation that 2 nominated members from our national network of older people's councils were nominated to the implementation group. We were delighted that the chair in Westmeath and the chair in Fingal were nominated to oversee the monitoring. And I know in terms of the collection of their feedback from that, it was a really, really innovative approach to have 2 citizens, 2 members of older people's councils, but an implementation group that's been governed by 2 ministers, and for them to have a say in it. And I think when we're really looking at policy into practice, if we look at those grassroots and the importance of having that authentic voice of older people, that's a really, really key component for me as well. Barry has covered a huge amount of progress in that presentation. What he would like for you to do as an audience is to please use agefriendlyhomes.ie, our website that we're doing with both departments and the housing agency. It is a resource. There's toolkits, guides, floor plans, research outcomes, case studies. Anything that you will need will be on that website, and contact information, and also all the details of our 31 age-friendly technical advisors and program managers. Again, I'm sure that you have more questions for Barry. We'd ask you to use Slido. Again, the details are up here. There is a QR code, or you can just log in and use the code. And also, if you are, just encourage you to tweet and use our hashtags policy to practice and ageing in Ireland, and to get a bit of traction and to get people to share the resources. So we'd really appreciate your participation in that. Our next presentation, I'm delighted, as I say, we both have Mark Harrington here, and the National Manager from the Healthy Age Friendly Homes, and my colleague Andrew Hannigan from the Department of Health and Sláintecare in the Department of Health. And I suppose in terms of the context of housing, we know, as I mentioned earlier, there are so many complex social determinants in terms of housing, health, and how older people can live independently. I suppose in Ireland and in many countries, the traditional model of care was your own home and then maybe into residential care. And obviously what we've been seeing through the Age Friendly programme and a lot of other things is that there are choices and there are options. And Barry spoke very eloquently about all those different options and choices that people now have, and that we have to respond to make sure that we have no dearth of housing options, but an abundance of them. One particular outcome that came was the support coordination action that was in housing options, and then Sláintecare obviously had that vision where we would look at a holistic approach to supporting people with wraparound supports, and making sure that all aspects, not a siloed approach to health or housing or technology provision or community supports or social supports, but a role and a responsibility to make sure that an older person would have access to all of those, and particularly as their needs change. And out of that, the Healthy Age Friendly Homes concept was born. And it's a very strategic and innovative collaboration between the Department of Health and Sláintecare and local government, and Age Friendly Ireland acting as the catalyst for that. So I'm delighted that Mark Harrington is here to give you an overview of that programme, and both himself and Andrew will be able to take questions after the presentation. Thank you.
What makes a person feel at home? In most cases, this is different for everyone, based on where you're from. But there are certain things that make us all feel at home. A familiar landmark, that familiar face of a neighbour, friends and family, where we feel most comfortable, and where we are ourselves. Today's webinar is about age-friendly housing, and I don't think we can talk about housing without talking about homes. Surveys tell us people want to remain in their own homes as they age. The Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme aims to support older people to continue living in their homes or in a home more suited to their needs, live with a sense of independence, be and feel part of their communities, and support the avoidance of early or premature admission to long-term residential care. The programme is very much based on taking a proactive, preventative approach to enabling older people remain in their own homes. Today, I want to give you an overview of the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme. What is the programme about? Why are we taking this new collaborative approach? Ireland has an ageing population with the forecasted demographic changes over the next 30 years, seeing the population of over 65s rising from 630,000 to 1.6 million. The population of over 85s from 148,000 to 555,000. The life expectancies for males rising from 79.3 years of age to 85.6 years of age. The life expectancies for females rising from 83.3 to 88.3 years of age in that time period. This is good news for us all. We are going to live longer lives. However, it also raises challenges which require new policies and programs to meet these challenges. And I think and hope by the end of today's presentation, you will see where the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme will be a big part of that solution. The Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme, phase 1, is an initial 2-year programme and is a working relationship between Sláintecare and Age Friendly Ireland. Sláintecare is a 10-year programme to transform our health and social care service. It is a roadmap for building a world-class health and social care service for Irish people. The Sláinte Care vision is to achieve a universal, single-tier health and social care system where everyone has equal access to services based on their need and not on their ability to pay. It is a vision of the right care in the right place at the right time. Age Friendly Ireland is an appointed shared service function of local government, hosted by Meath County Council, which brings together, supports and provides technical guidance to the 31 local authority-led, multi-agency, age-friendly city and county programmes across Ireland, delivering the goals and objectives of the World Health Organization age-friendly global framework. I think it is worth saying that something we are really proud of in Age Friendly Ireland is that Ireland became the first WHO fully affiliated age-friendly country in the world back in 2018. This programme is the first of its kind in Ireland. It is a new way of working, with the roles being funded by Sláinte Care in the Department of Health and being hosted and implemented within local government. With the roles being hosted within local government, the local coordinators can draw on expertise in many areas, such as housing allocations, right sizing, housing adaptation grants, and other services. Other services may be libraries, arts, community, sports partnership, public participation networks. We will also draw on the expertise of the programme managers and regional managers and technical advisors within Age Friendly Ireland. The local coordinators are working at senior middle management level within their local authorities with access to senior management. The local coordinators have presented to and engaged with elected representatives through their full council meetings and are rolling out local launches with the chief executives and mayors within each local authority. From a national policy context, the programme for government, Our Shared Future, sees a commitment to a vision of an age-friendly Ireland, including home and community care, housing options for our ageing population, which Barry has referenced, alternatives to long-term care, and healthy ageing. Partnerships with key funding streams for this programme have been made with the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, the Department of Climate Action, and the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, with a commitment to increase funding for the housing adaptation schemes, National Retrofit Programme, and warmer home schemes nationally. Our partnership with SEAI will see all participants of the programme offered a free home energy assessment, which will inform them of the works required to make their homes warmer and more energy efficient, and also provide them with an estimate of cost for these works. Monitoring and evaluation is crucial to securing an understanding of the impact of the programme on the health and well-being, quality of life, integrated working relationships, and cost savings generated. Monitoring of this programme will be carried out by Maynooth University. Academic professionals have designed a full evaluation process that will capture the impact of the programme on the older person's experience, health and well-being outcomes, access to service, home improvements, and cost savings. Key to this evaluation process, and indeed with all the Age Friendly Ireland workings, is obtaining the feedback and opinions of the older person on their experience and making them the voice, showing what the outcomes of the programme really are. This evaluation will feed into the recommendation for a possible wider scale rollout of the programme. The Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme was officially launched in July of this year by both Minister Peter Burke, Minister of State of the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and Minister Mary Butler, Minister of State at the Department of Health. The launch shows the commitment of both the Department of Health and Housing to this new ambitious joint Pathfinder programme. As part of our launch, we put together a short promotional video which sets out the main aims of the programme and shows how the process works. This video is a great overview of the programme that we have used in our promotion with older people and stakeholder services alike.
I think we're going to need a bit of sunscreen today.
Research shows that the majority of people want to remain in their own home as they age. This desire is often challenged by their home not being suitable as their needs become more pronounced, their financial means decrease, and their mobility declines.
Any goodies go and check that press.
With the right assessment and intervention, the living environment can be changed from being one of health risk to one of health support. I'm Mark Harrington, the National Manager of the Healthy Age Friendly Home programme. Our aim is to support older people to live independently with integrated care, collaborating with stakeholders to integrate housing, health and social care services as part of a long-term programme to improve and streamline care for our ageing population. So what is the process involved in helping you access the supports available to enable you stay in your home independently for as long as possible?
This is probably that girl, Eddie.
Firstly, a Healthy Age Friendly Homes Coordinator will carry out a needs assessment to establish what supports are required. The coordinator will contact you to arrange a time suitable to call to your home and carry out the needs assessment. You can be referred into the programme through existing services in the community, housing, health, technology, transport, NGO sector and others.
There's a seat, sit down there, we have a cup of tea.
Or if you're in the 9 participating local authority areas, you can contact your local coordinator in the council.
Hi Rosaline, thank you. I'm delighted you were able to reach out to us. My name is Anne Moran. I am the local coordinator for the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme.
They will take a holistic, person-centred approach when assessing your needs, looking at your housing, health, technology and community and social needs.
Rosaline, can I ask you, have you any concerns regarding accessing your shower?
There's a lip on the shower about getting over.
They can provide information on adapting your existing home and the relevant grants available to support you make those changes with a focus on universal design and energy efficiency.
Of the slipping and the tiles.
They can provide you with access to a range of housing, health and social care supports to help you decide on what you need to enable you live the life you want to the best of your ability within your community.
What I will do is I will draw up an action plan to enable you, to support you to remain in your own home.
There's only myself and Eddie in the house, and my arthritis was so bad. And Eddie got a bad back, helping me up and down the stairs. Things couldn't go on the way they were. And things are an awful lot better, and we're an awful lot happier.
Perhaps you feel your home is no longer suitable and you would like to move to a more appropriate home. The coordinator can provide you with information on right sizing within your community, county or city. Post-assessment, the coordinator will develop a person-centred support plan for you. They will provide you with information and signpost you to supports. They will facilitate the process, implement actions and track progress and work with you to enable and empower you to make the decisions that you want. The Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme aims to support older people to live in their own home with dignity and independence for as long as possible. Phase 1 of the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme is being rolled out in 9 local authorities: Cork County, Dublin City, Fingal County, Galway County and City, Limerick City and County, Longford County, South Dublin, Tipperary County and Westmeath County. A local coordinator will case manage a support package for each person referred to the programme, linking the supports from the variety of public, voluntary, private and community agencies in the area.
The more people that find out about this, the better. I feel there's people living in circumstances and they're afraid to tell their own families that they're not coping. And this way they can get themselves sorted and have a think about things and take their time.
As you can see from this video, phase 1 of the programme is being rolled out in 9 local authority areas, with 9 local coordinators coming from different backgrounds. They are a multidisciplinary team with expertise in nursing, housing, home support and community, which has been extremely beneficial to the success of the programme to date. Since the rollout of the programme in June of this year, we have carried out stakeholder engagement sessions and on-the-ground face-to-face engagement with hundreds of stakeholders. We've received over 600 referrals into the programme and carried out a needs assessment with over 300 older persons, ranging in ages from 60 to 99. We have actioned 419 housing supports, 129 health supports, 110 community supports, and 101 technical assistance supports. While these figures and statistics show a great progress of the programme to date, what does it really mean for the older person participating in the programme? The coordinator is assisting hundreds of older people by providing them with housing adaptation grant information. In many cases, the local coordinators are noting that the participants are unaware of the availability of these grants and their entitlement to apply for such grants. We are also helping the person make that application and submitting that to their local authority. We will then track the progress within their local authority. In some cases, the home may only require minor works, and the coordinators are linking in with the care and repair programme in Age Action to progress these works for participants. We also provide information on right sizing, and even at this early stage with the programme, we've assisted an older person to transfer into a more appropriate age-friendly housing option within their area. As we come out of the COVID pandemic and enter into the reopening of society, albeit on a restricted basis, it has been identified that many participants of the programme are feeling isolated and detached from society. As a key part of our support, we will assist the older person with community and social supports, helping them link in with community groups, active retirement, physical activities, men's sheds, social prescribers, the NGO sector, community gardaí, and library services, just to mention a few supports. Another key part of supporting older people to remain in their home is technology supports and connectivity. Following an assessment, where required, we will link a participant in with organisations and groups to assist the person stay digitally connected. We will offer information on assistive technology, the likes of pendants, fall detectors, bogus caller buttons, bed sensors. These are just to name a few. We will also help the participant gain access to these supports. We can also help with information on health and well-being, link the person in with the public health nurse and the primary care teams, request a home care assessment where required, link with their GP, and assist in accessing transport to attend such appointments. As we are rolling out the programme, we have identified that many older people are also carers themselves, caring for a husband, a wife, a partner, or an older relative. In these cases, we will assist in providing information on carer support within their communities and ensure that carers are availing of all the financial and care support entitlements available to them. As part of the programme, we are currently finalising a health, community and social supports atlas. The Health Service Executive have provided us with 9,000 health points, and we are overlaying this health data with information from local authorities and community supports. This new atlas will contain health information, housing supports, community services and social supports, transport, libraries, public services like guards, local authorities, post offices, shops and services, leisure, parks, pools, gyms, and other key services. This will be a great resource for our coordinators, but the wider potential rolling out of such an atlas for the use of members of the public, support services and policymakers will be invaluable. So I started today's presentation talking about a person's house and home and how this is very much linked to a person's sense of home and community. So with that in mind, I want to finish with a quote from a poem by Sailing to Windward called In Community. In community, others surround us, their dreams, their love and their faces, encourage our hearts to prosper, our minds to accept other places. In community lies man's large ambition. Without makes larger our fears. Together we make sense of being and bring joy and length to our years.
Thanks, Mark. That's a fantastic presentation and really a fantastic overview, I suppose, what of Healthy Age Friendly Homes sets out to achieve. And I suppose there'll be a good opportunity in the questions and answers to ask questions about where that's going to go and how it's going to scale up. And a very nice little touch with the poem at the end. A lot of questions starting to come through already, some practical ones coming in around the resources of today and the presentations. So our head of comms will be organising to make sure that all the presentations are freely available. And can they be emailed? So yes, if you've pre-registered, yes, of course, we'll be able to send those out to you afterward. And we will progress with that after the webinar is over. So delighted, waiting patiently in the wings are on the screen, as today is part physical and part hybrid. My colleague and good friend from Limerick City and County Council, Sarah Newell. Sarah has, I suppose, many strings to her bow. She's Senior Executive Officer in Limerick City and County Council. She's also the designated age-friendly technical advisor, which Barry spoke about in terms of the housing policy. But she's also a planner and open urban designer with almost 20 years experience in local government and really was instrumental in the Limerick Regeneration Plan, which is quite a huge local policy development for the regeneration of Limerick City. And I suppose we can hear more about that in the questions and answers. So welcome, Sarah Newell.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Newell. I'm currently Senior Executive Officer with Limerick City and County Council. I would like to talk you through today the process of devising and delivering a private right-sizing policy and operational scheme in Limerick Council. I would also like to share with you a specific case study on a public right-sizing scheme delivered in 2014 and a private right-sizing scheme that we're currently undertaking in Limerick City. Looking at the context, the number of people aged over 65 years in Ireland expected to reach 1.4 million by 2040 is significant. The population aged over 80 years will quadruple from 128,000 to 484,000 in 2046. Also, there are just over 110 3 or 4 bedroom properties underoccupied by a single person. So even if just 3% of these underoccupied homes were utilised more efficiently, it would house just over 3,000 larger households in need. Looking at the public policy background, there are new approaches that are needed to reach the target of building at least 33,000 new homes per year, and this is to align with the National Planning Framework and the Housing for All policy. Right-sizing is a scheme that can be delivered in the right places, predominantly areas with the highest future demand for new smaller house types, and surrounded by existing communities, jobs, and benefiting from existing infrastructure networks. Homeowners as well can also benefit from unlocking a proportion of their housing wealth, reducing household bills and right-sizing without having to leave their current neighbourhoods. So just focusing in on this slide, we're looking at an illustration of the various types of housing that can be delivered throughout the housing paradigm. So from general needs housing, family housing, right up to sheltered housing and what's called extra care housing. So this is nursing home provision and institutional settings for the provision of extra medical care. The focus of Limerick Council's right-sizing policy is on sheltered housing, so age-banded housing for over 50 years in a managed setting with the convenience of warden and alarm systems. In terms of the policy in Limerick City and County Council, generally in the council, an older person for the purpose of housing with support are persons of 55 years of age or over. However, also we consider couples where one person is aged 55 or over and the other is 50 or over. We also look at single persons aged 50 or over where priority for accommodation is awarded on medical or exceptional grounds. Limerick City and County Council also facilitates age-friendly right-sizing transfers to meet the housing needs of older people on their housing waiting list. And now, since March 2021, we have a private right-sizing scheme adopted into our scheme of allocation priority. And I would like to talk about our pilot scheme currently underway at Mungret Gate. So in terms of the private right-sizing scheme that we have underway, we are accommodating a right-sizing policy for private occupants, private owner-occupiers. And the history of this policy was initiated through a number of inquiries that the council received over the last 3 to 4 years on the potential for this scheme. And we collated an unofficial list, if you like, of expressions of interest and representations made by elected members. Also, there is an approach made by the Older Persons Council in 2017 for the council to consider a private elderly downsizing policy. So we utilised our SPC structure, our Special Policy Committee structure, to devise and endorse a policy for the organisation with the help of the sectoral reps and the elected members on that policy group. And our aim overall was to facilitate an owner-occupier living in a 4-bedroom or a 3-bedroom house who may wish to transfer to a council or an AHB managed older person scheme to free up their larger house for more efficient use for a family on our housing waiting list. So looking at the steps we took to bring in this private right-sizing policy, we suggested a financial contribution model as a pilot for Limerick. So what this meant is that any private householder would pay a financial contribution to become a tenant of the council in a managed scheme, and on condition that we purchase their 3 or 4 bedroom property. So this has been completed in terms of working out that financial contribution. We also workshopped with the councillors and the SPC members to gain consensus, and this has also been complete. We amended the financial contribution element of the Limerick City and County Council allocation scheme to enable the scheme to operate. And I'll talk a bit further about that later. So this required the full adoption by all elected members of the council, and this happened in March 2021. So we launched a register of interest in June this year, and this involved working with our media and communications team to set up an online registration portal. And we achieved a lot of interest on the scheme within the life of the register, which was just over 6 weeks. We assessed applications and shortlisted. We inspected the houses and obtained valuations on those houses, and this has been complete. We proceeded to contract to purchase houses and execute the financial contribution, and this is currently underway at this point in time. So we undertook the pilot. We've committed to undertaking the pilot for 1 year, and we've committed to coming back to review the lessons learned on the pilot in February 2022. So what was the policy that was adopted? So the policy that was adopted was a flat age and percentage rate band for the financial contribution. And this was the preferred option. And the agreement with the SPC and elected members was to proceed with a private right-sizing scheme for 1 year with the financial contribution element as follows. If you're aged 55 to 80 plus, that a quarter of the net proceeds of the sale of your dwelling will be the financial contribution to become a tenant. And as I stated earlier, we've agreed to undertake the pilot for 1 year. We've agreed to look at targeted adverts to showcase upcoming older persons scheme over the next 12 months. And we're going to prepare a report on the pilot process to present next year at SPC level. We're also looking at future downsizing transfers and right-sizing transfers and future housing schemes that we have, for example, in Kennedy Park and Thomond Gate. So these are areas with a strong residential neighbourhood with very good services and connectivity back to the city, and areas where people would like to downsize into. So moving on to the private right-sizing scheme at Mulgrave Gate, the current pilot that's underway, we ask key questions. Are you aged 55 or over and own your own home? Do you find that your home is too big for your needs? Have you children that have left the home? And do you want to reduce the running costs of your household? And do you want to move to a managed community for older persons? And if you had answered yes to any of these questions, Mulgrave Gate, our first pilot for private right-sizing, may be an option for you. So the private downsizing scheme, the right-sizing scheme, is a completely voluntary scheme, which means that you do not have to move unless you choose to do so. Our aim is not just to help people wanting to transfer to a smaller home, but to release properties that are in high demand for families that need them the most. So this is an exciting new scheme of 8 two-bed townhouses in partnership with Clon Housing, an approved housing body with a specialism for older persons accommodation. And it's in Mulgrave Gate, a key suburb of Limerick City in close proximity to the hospital and services. Clon Housing is a dedicated age-friendly housing provider committed to providing high-quality housing which enable people to age in place, create homes and thrive in communities. So the register of interest was for just over 6 weeks. We had over 30 applications for the 8 houses. And in terms of the key conditions of the Mulgrave Gate, the key conditions of the private right-sizing is the sale by the applicant of their existing 3 or 4 bed house to the council, the payment of the 25% financial contribution to the council, and that's reflected in the final compensation sum given to the applicant in terms of the sales proceeds of the house. So the 25% can be offset against the purchase price that the council pays for the house. It also is on agreement of the execution of a tenancy agreement with Clan Housing and the payment of a small differential rent under the council's differential rent scheme. So the applicant's property will be valued at the current market value. And as I stated earlier, that the financial contribution is 25% based on the market value, less the refurbishment and legal costs. So the net sales amount to be fair to the applicant. So in terms of the success of the Mulgrave scheme, as I said, it was oversubscribed and we have 8 applications now proceeding to contract, which is very successful as a pilot, as a first pilot for the city. In terms of upcoming older person scheme that we have, we're continuing to learn the lessons of the first pilot, and we're looking to look for the next scheme to advertise. And really, it's trying to tap into approved housing bodies that might have turnkeys with private developers, CAS schemes with AHB. So this is specific older person schemes that are funded under the CAS funding stream from the department. And we're looking to really get it marketed correctly and as attractively as possible. So provide CGIs, provide an online portal, and make it easy for the applicant to make an application to the process. Our application form is only 2 pages long, and we want to keep it as short as possible to maximise the interest in the submissions under the Register of Interest. In terms of public right sizing, I'd like to talk about a scheme that we have in Colliver Court in Limerick City, a scheme that was developed and completed in 2014. So it's just over 7 years old. And Limerick City and County Council, our allocations policy facilitates age-friendly downsizing transfers to meet the housing needs of older people who are actually on our housing waiting list. So this is a distinction from the Munger Gate example, where we're focusing on private households. Here we're focusing on public households. Colliver Court is a 35-unit scheme delivered in 2014. It's 21 2-beds and 14 1-bed apartments. There's a guest room and a communal facility also as part of this scheme. In terms of its key features, it's quite well connected. So Colliver Court is conveniently located a short distance, just over 5 minutes from a supermarket at Roxburgh Centre in Limerick City. There is a local bus service just right outside the door, and the bus stop had been moved in consultation with Bus Éireann to facilitate its relocation to the front of this older person scheme. To the eastern end of the site is a small, secure landscape car parking area for those households who do own a car. In terms of its spaciousness, there is a perception that downsizing means smaller spaces. Right sizing means less efficient spaces. But in Colliver Court, the scheme was designed with a higher than normal floor to ceiling height. And this allows for greater levels of daylight and a feeling of spaciousness. The 21 2-bed apartments and 14 1-bed apartments and the guest room comprise of the scheme, and they facilitate cohabiting couples who may require 2 separate bedrooms for health or lifestyle reasons, or for single households who may just want 1 bedroom. But we're conscious that as an older person ages, they do require the need for an extra room, whether that be for an office space or indeed an additional bedroom to be used for a carer. So having the flexibility of an extra room is particularly important. In terms of accessibility, the Colliver Court scheme has homes with wider doors, larger circulation space and level access. And accessibility in the home is the difference between being able to remain living independently and a crisis move to a residential setting, for example. So Colliver Court has level thresholds, ramps, appropriate door and corridor widths. All ground floor apartments are wheelchair accessible, and there are 6 wheelchair accessible parking spaces in the development. The stair course serves apartments 15 to 21 has been fitted with a specific passenger lift. Provision has been made in all other stair cores for the installation of a lift in the future should the need arise, and this is really important in terms of future-proofing the design. 5 apartments have been fitted out with wheelchair accessible bathrooms, including a wheelchair accessible toilet and basin, shower seat, and all the necessary grab rails. So in terms of the Colliver Court scheme, it's really important to have an environment that's pleasurable. So the home environment plays a vital role in our sense of psychological well-being throughout the life course. Home contributes to feelings of comfort and security. And just in this slide, there's a few quotes from residents within the scheme that gives a real validation and endorsement of how well the scheme is currently being managed, how well it's been designed, and the joy that they feel from living in their home every day, which is really important to the council. In terms of management and being manageable, the Colliver Court scheme is low maintenance. It has low maintenance design features. We have Clúid Housing Association, the AHB, which manages all our services to tenants at Colliver Court on behalf of the council. And Clúid has adopted a bottom-up approach to management rules. It has a strong focus on understanding customer demand to what residents want. And Clúid employs a part-time caretaker on the scheme that's dedicated to Colliver Court, and he maintains the common areas and assists residents who need his help with small tasks. Clúid's housing officer visits very regularly. There's an emergency service, a warden call system, is available through the Tunstall Call Centre. So this is a 24-hour response centre, and that gives increased comfort and security to the tenants of the scheme. In terms of the scheme being a sociable environment, the scheme has extensive internal and external common areas where tenants can meet and socialise for communions, confirmations, birthdays, and other celebrations. And many residents already know each other well, having lived in the South Hill area of the city. An older persons group alone are currently carrying out consultation work with tenants individually and as a group to find out what activities residents would like to see in their common areas and help get them established. The communal facilities has been designed to be used by the wider community also in South Hill and is also controlled by residents, creating an integration of this whole development within the surrounding neighbourhood, which is really important. The local HSE community worker for the over 55s in South Hill has a long-standing relationship with many people living on the scheme. She has provided help moving in, ensured supports followed residents, organised public health intervention when needed, and built links with tenants she didn't already know. She is proactive in helping with and encouraging the use of the communal facilities. So these are all different agencies that are involved with the tenants of the Colliver Court scheme to ensure that the uses for the community rooms are maximised to their fullest. So just to conclude, I'd like to say thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope that there are some lessons and steps that can be replicated through the process of bringing in the private right sizing scheme and also how we manage our public right sizing scheme. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have. And my email is sarah.newell@limerick.ie if you want to have any information on how to implement the public and the private right sizing schemes. And we'd be happy to share that information with you.
That's great, Sarah. Thank you very much. A really, really comprehensive overview and a lot of detail. But even at that, Sarah, and how well you covered it, we still have a lot of questions coming in about Mungret Park and Colliver Court. So we will open the panel session soon. So look at it, I think today with our three presentations, we've covered quite a bit in terms of the context for housing. And I hope that the resources will be useful to you all. And as I say, you can send your questions through Slido and using the QR code. But as I say, we've quite a bit to get through now in the questions that have already come in. So I'm going to start with the Q&A panel. And one of the first ones that's coming in, I suppose, and maybe it's twofold. It's actually for you, Andrew. Just what is sláinte care? Because, and I know that I can understand this come through, it is an Irish word as well, and not everybody will understand what sláinte care is and what the vision is, but also why is it involved in healthy age-friendly homes? So maybe if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure thing. I think Mark summarised it quite succinctly and elegantly in his presentation. It is a 10-year cross-government programme aimed at transforming our health and social care system. The aim is to have a universal single-tier health and social care system for all of Ireland. Part of that, as Mark mentioned in his presentation, is providing the right care in the right place at the right time. More specifically, if you kind of dig into that, it's about providing safe and timely care, addressing health inequalities and promoting health and well-being as well. And this Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme really fits into addressing health inequalities and promoting health and well-being and providing safe and timely access to care. It's all three of them. So when you look at putting policy into practice, this very much fits into that mould. In terms of sláinte care, I know some of our audience will be very familiar with it, others maybe not so much. So in terms of our actual programme of change, we have 11 projects, 11 major projects across 2 reform programmes. They range from e-health solutions, waiting list reduction plans. We have health and wellbeing initiatives. We have other kind of more capital-based programs. So the establishment of elective hospitals in 3 locations around the country. We also have regional health areas and a move towards more population-based planning. So there's a broad sweep of projects that we have over the course of the next 3 years in the pipeline. In terms of actual healthcare reform, when you think about it in terms of health, it's not just health, it's health plus the social determinants of health, the wider determinants. So a program like this fits in very nicely with the goals of Sláinte Care in terms of, again, putting policy into action. We know if you're looking to, take care out of the acute sector, away from hospitals, bring it to the community, you need to look at things like housing, health, education, all of the factors that determine people's community health and well-being, as well as their personal health and well-being. So I think this program, it sits alongside other programs that we've done as well. So you might be aware recently that we launched our Healthy Communities program. It's a very innovative €13 million program aimed at increasing the health and social care projects that we have going in 19 community areas across the country. And again, it looks at things like education, housing, social support, community access, as well as health. So I think in terms of healthy age-friendly homes, we're looking at those 4 areas that you mentioned, Mark. So housing, technology, community supports. If we can provide additional services to these people, we can keep them living longer, healthier lives in their own homes, prevent them from going into hospitals or nursing homes, and reduce the burden both on the health system, but keeping people happier and living longer lives at home.
I think for me, though, what really stands out about Sláinte Care and why it was so impactful when the vision first came out is it definitely recognises the capacity of other sectors. And I don't feel that it wants to just do it on its own. And I think if we learn anything, particularly if this is an international series, we can look at other countries and see what they've done well. And for me, definitely, given the huge role and function of local government, Sláinte Care have certainly capitalised on that. So you mentioned, for example, the healthy communities. There seems to be a great recognition that a delivery partner through local government, can be achieved, and the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes is one of those. Healthy communities is another. And I think that's really, really welcome, Andrew. In the vision for Sláinte Care is that they're sort of recognising. And if we look at the response to COVID and the community call response, where all the partners and all the sectors came together, it shows you what can be achieved. So that's why I'm very excited and delighted that Age Friendly Ireland is working with Sláinte Care on that. Mark, I suppose one of the other questions then that's coming through on a practical level, what are the critical success factors with the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes? I mean, we're in it 9 months at this stage. You've been managing 9 sites, and even already we're starting to see, it yielding results. So from your perspective, and maybe one of the ones is the local government and the collaboration, but tell us in your experience or share with the audience the critical success factors to date.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. And I suppose what Andrew and yourself have said, it is a pioneering new programme. It's a new way of working. So it hasn't really been done in Ireland before, is making them links between the housing and health supports for older people, with the function in local government, but with the support funding wise, and the support from the Department of Health and the health services on the ground. So it is a pioneering programme. The critical factors, I would say, rolling it out have been very much so a collaboration, getting the buy-in, building them relationships, support from a leadership level, and empowering people. If you look at it from the strategic kind of level, why the collaboration is important, I suppose when the proposal has been put forward and the initial implementation was put forward, it's very much the workings of Age Friendly Ireland, yourself, Catherine, all your colleagues and our colleagues in Age Friendly Ireland, the Department of Health, Sláinte Care. You'd also have then Barry and as a director of housing and local government kind of services. It's the collaboration at that point was key to success in actually implementing it in the first place. And what fed into that, a couple of maybe Oprah would have been maybe back in 2016, which was a pilot, which was very much so maybe from a clinical point of view, and it touched on participants maybe that were at the crisis point, maybe where they had entered that acute care setting and trying to get the person back into the home. Now, the Health Age Friendly Homes programme will obviously deal with participants and try and get people back into their home, but we want to focus as well on the prevention piece, and really that was key to kind of the implementation and the proposal side of it. And we also done maybe a little programme in Meath County Council at the start of the pandemic. So back in March of 2020, when COVID hit us, what we done in our housing department in Meath County Council was we decided that we'd take a look and see could we
follow up with our over 70s local authority tenants. And we discovered we had 340 over 70s living alone within our local authority housing stock. So we set about contacting all those people. And again, it was about supporting them. It was about telling them about the community support, community line, getting them supports out there, getting the community support in there to maybe help them get prescriptions from the pharmacy, meals, shopping. We linked it with community guards, and again, into housing if there was any emergency maintenance. So the feedback we got from what was kind of, you might say, was kind of small interventions, the feedback we got was it had a major impact on them people's lives. That kind of fed into the initial phase, and that helped us with the buy-in. If you look at maybe the operations part, then again, the collaboration is key again at the operations. So the local coordinators are now on the ground engaging with their health care counterparts, their local community groups, the NGOs on the ground locally. And again, it's about buy-in, it's about building relationships there. So they're really the critical factors, and that's been very successful to date, and that's helped with the success of the programme to date. And then maybe if you finish on the most important part, I suppose, is the people part. And it is a service, and service is about providing for the people. And in this case, obviously, it's for the older person. And key to that is the coordinators building that relationship with the participant, the older person, gaining the trust. Okay, we'll provide the information and help the person, but it's about gaining that trust so that they have the proper information, and we assist them, facilitate where we can in providing them services. Maybe just finish off on the point is, it's something that we've kind of talked about, Catherine, myself and yourself, and with Andrew, is about how this could be replicated. So like we'll prove this concept that it's working, and we can see on the ground it's working at the moment, but how could we replicate that, and could it be used in other sectors, you know, maybe with climate change, or maybe the disability services, again, maybe in some homeless services, if you focused on family homelessness, could it be replicated, or parts of the programme be replicated in them areas? So we'd like to see that the learning will be a benefit to the programme and rolling out to phase 2, but also might be a benefit to, you know, to other services.
Absolutely. And I think when you're putting a model like that together, it can be a wireframe then that can be replicated, as, you know, to any other challenge that comes in. And I think that's really important, because if we're cognizant of what already existed, and it's in the housing policy about support coordination, of course, there was elements of support coordination in Ireland. You know, we had tenant liaison officers going into houses, public health nurses, social workers, you know, different services, befrienders, the community and voluntary sector, social prescribers, so many. But in some way we needed to, I suppose, harness the health and the housing. And because the local government was so important, not just for social housing, but as the mandated housing authority, to be able to look at the whole spectrum. And for me, I think that was the piece that was missing, and that, you know, the Healthy Age Friendly Homes has the capacity then to harness all of that and link with all those existing supports. So when the coordinator goes in, they can link them with a social prescriber or befriender or whatever service that they're getting into. And I think, as we say, is it doesn't matter what the service is, it's the frame that can be used and can be replicated. So I suppose on that, before we just move off on this, there was one question has come in. Well, it's been liked a couple of times. So what is the future after the 2 years, Andrew? The question is, and I know we sort of have in our ideas, but if you would share with the audience what the plan is for phase 1.
Well, as Mark mentioned, this is phase 1 of hopefully a longer term programme. So we'll be carrying out our evaluation process in conjunction with Maynooth University, and the goal is that, you know, we're already seeing really good results, as you showed, Mark, with those figures. You know, we're reaching people out there. There's really good traction. We're showing that we're providing really good services for people out there. So if we can carry out a really strong evaluation and show that this is something worthwhile, we can then hopefully roll that out long term and roll that out nationally as a service that's there in the entirety of the country, really.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Mark. I suppose, Barry, there's quite a few questions for yourself and Sarah, and I'm trying to bunch them, you know, because there's a lot of, so one of the ones that's coming in is about the policy, and is it just for social housing? And I suppose we're so long working in it, we know it's across the whole spectrum, you know, rental market, private and everything else. But just, I suppose, what people are asking, I can understand this from other countries, and you kind of did touch on it, but what works? What were the really good factors? What was the approach? You talked about the structure, the implementation group, but I suppose what worked? Why has the progress been so significant? But also, why has it went into housing for all? So as your capacity as chair, what do you think were the key outcomes that made it work so well?
Yeah, well, I think as I was saying in the presentation, the joint departmental approach was crucial to success on this, because I suppose historically we've actually been quite good at developing policy documents in Ireland and doing research and coming up with great policies, but the implementation probably hasn't been quite as strong. I'm sure that's a problem in every jurisdiction, but the joint commitment of the two ministers, in particular Minister English and Daly at the time, really drove this. And the fact that they said we're going straight from this to an implementation group was important. And that was also under the chairmanship of a very experienced medical professional as well, Mr. Leo Cairns. And essentially it was divided up quite systematically in terms of the approach, actions assigned to each group, and progress being monitored and reported back. And all the subject matter experts were really around the table, or if they weren't there already, we identified them very quickly and brought them in. So I think that approach has been good. Now, the other thing as well, because housing options was up there and live and work happening on it all the time, it also fed in very readily to the programme for government. And there was quite a strong representation from Age Friendly in the current programme for government, which probably wasn't there to that extent previously. And again, that is carried through to Housing for All, because quite a number of the actions that are in housing options will also carry through to the next programme. And I see it as a continuing policy, and it's the fact that the implementation group was there and working and active, I think, has made sure that that's kept on the agenda and will be seen in the next programme.
And I think for other countries that are listening, that's not just in the context of housing. The fact that Age Friendly Ireland is now in a shared service has supported the translation of a vision of Age Friendly into programme for government. I think that's a key learning, and probably we'll be focusing on that in maybe, throughout the different thematic areas. Is that the positioning of the programme in a shared service? So, because I know a number of countries, when they're delivering Age Friendly, whether it's housing or other planning or whatever the domain is, the constitution of where the programme is anchored can be very, very important. So that's another key learning for us. I suppose maybe I'll jump to Sarah, because Sarah, there's a few coming in, and I suppose, and I want to come back to Barry on the right sizing specifically, but before I go back to that, what people are asking about is, what was the buy-in at local level for the schemes? How come, in terms of right sizing, the elected representatives passed it, it went through the SPC, they agreed the parameters. Why was there buy-in at local level, or how did this come about in Limerick, that there was such an interest in it, I suppose, and such an energy for it?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine.
Yeah.
I guess the buy-in was crucial, and because it was initiated by the Older Persons Council and through the elected members, especially through the representation, there was already buy-in on the concept of right sizing. And so it's just a matter of the executive to come up with the implementation to allow it to happen. So I think what was crucial was the knowledge on the ground locally of our elected members and through the Older Persons Council as well, which was really important. So it really stemmed from the ground up, if you like, and our role was really to see how we could implement it legally within the local government system. And it was fully endorsed, at every level throughout SPC right to full council.
I think that's a recurrent theme, Sarah, because we get asked that about the energy and the appetite for things, the healthy age-friendly homes, whether it's another pilot initiative. There just seems to be a general understanding and great buy-in because this is the right thing to do. Maybe it's because we all have a vested interest. Maybe we're all going to age, or we're concerned about our children or our parents, but there seems to be a huge energy for it. And I suppose, Barry, that brings us to the next question about the right size. And a question that came in is, you mentioned that the policy, the implementation group, whatever actions are remaining, will extend or go into another committee. But basically, the future of the right sizing, can maybe outline where is it at and what's the current status with it?
Yeah, well, I think the importance has been recognised, in that the government has committed under Housing for All to draw up a right sizing policy nationally. So that will be coming through. Like, it is, the benefits can be seen, and even the type of people that Mark's programme are helping will benefit in some cases from right sizing. One of our other colleague Emer would have been involved with a research report there through the BRE Trust, which indicated that the cost of poor housing to the health system, among other things, can be up to €1 billion based on extrapolating evidence that's there from other jurisdictions and EU data. So it's certainly it's one tool, I suppose, in terms of helping develop and get people into accommodation that's accessible and comfortable and more manageable from their point of view, and allows them to age comfortably. Even better if you can get it exactly in the same location or very close to where you came from, because that would be one factor why people are reluctant, that they don't want to move too far away from where their own community is. But the other benefit, obviously, if you can successfully achieve right sizing, then is that it frees up family homes as well. I think one of the key things, because there is a huge commitment in Housing for All to provide 300,000 additional homes between now and 2030. But part of that, I think, is, and it has been emphasised in the plan, is reuse of our existing stock is very important as well. So it's much cheaper if you can actually go and retrofit even extensively an existing house rather than have to start from scratch and design and produce new plans, so it's much easier if it can be done on retrofit and reuse in that way. And that speaks to a lot of objectives like compact urban development and the national planning framework, and also the climate change agenda, because you're reusing and helping to decarbonise the building sector in a sense as well. So there are multiple benefits from right sizing where it can be achieved.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I think, local authorities can play that role, Sarah, based on the Limerick. And I know we've, as Barry mentioned, we have done our own template. We're having that reviewed. But how can we accelerate that? And that brings it to one of the next questions, Sarah. A lot of questions coming in about Mungret Park and Collivet Court in terms of the universal design. And I think that speaks to Barry's point about the housing and public realm trail, and all of those are resources. But what specific design elements? You touched on a few of them. But the other big question there, Sarah, is where did you get the money? That's what people are asking. What funding stream? Where did it come from? Or what does Ireland need to do to make sure that we accelerate that? So you said oversubscribed. You had 8 houses, over 30 people who actually wanted to sell their home and move in there. So for me, that shows over 4 times the amount of people that want to do that. We need to provide the stock and we need to provide the homes. So a little bit just on the design element, Sarah, and a little bit on the funding.
Yeah, so the first pilot of 8 houses, townhouses, are designed with ground floor, wet room, and also the provision of grab rails and all the kit associated with universal design. Now they are townhouses, but we are happy to say that there's going to be a second phase of 23 apartments as part of the next pilot, right beside the 8 townhouses. So these are apartments with lift access and provision for that larger bathroom right beside the bedroom, which is really important in terms of future-proofing for tracking equipment and interventions like that. In terms of the funding stream that's available, we're utilising a funding stream that we use to purchase houses called the SHIP funding stream.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be really great as an objective of the right sizing policy that's in Housing for All to actually have its own dedicated funding stream, that we don't have to rely on SHIP. We just have to make sure it's within the acquisition caps for our area in Limerick, and it would be the same for other local authorities around the country as well. But it would be a great recommendation to actually have a specific funding stream for right sizing acquisitions to enable us to purchase the larger 3 and 4 bedroom house.
Okay, Sarah, that's very comprehensive. And one of the things that we mentioned earlier was you're an age-friendly technical advisor. Barry referenced that they were part of the housing options. They're representative in each local authority. Some questions here is, can you tell, just in a short synopsis, tell us a little bit more about the role? That question has come through a couple of times, a little bit more about your resource and what function you have in that capacity.
Yeah, so the role of an age-friendly technical advisor within the local authority is to communicate all the policies and webinars like this to the technical teams within the council who are undertaking social housing schemes, and also increasingly now affordable housing schemes under the Affordable Housing Fund. So it's really an intermediary to share information and good practice that's coming through the Age Friendly Ireland network. And we have Anne Rizzo as our regional coordinator, who's really important in terms of channeling policies and directions back to us. We have a very good communication channel with Catherine through the Age Friendly Technical Advisors quarterly meetings, which is really important to share learnings and share case studies of upcoming designs for social housing schemes and policies. So I guess the role of a technical advisor is to impart all the policies and all the good practice case studies that are coming through the Age Friendly network.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. And I suppose one of the things about this, when we're so comfortable in our own sector, we use acronyms and we talk. And one of the questions, I'm going to give this to you, Barry, is what is an SPC? And I think it's the simplicity of that question is really important, because we talk about SPCs and LCDCs. But so if maybe just give 2 minutes on that for the audience, Barry.
Okay, well, SPC, it's Strategic Policy Committee in short. It's made up of a number of elected representatives and also people from private sector and community interests. Another acronym is the PPN, which is the Public Participation Network. So we would have a lot of community groups, environmental interests, and all of that represented on the committee. So each council would have a number of them. So, for example, in Meath, I sit on one which is to do with housing, community, and cultural, and we would develop things like an allocation scheme for social housing, which includes, we just added in a right sizing policy to it, and we would have drawn from Sarah's experience in Limerick in putting that together. So that's one. We'd also have ones on economic development and environment and planning and European affairs. So there's 4 in ours. There will be more in some of the larger local authorities, but in essence, it's a strategic policy committee, and then recommendations come from that to the full council for approval, such as the allocation scheme that I just mentioned.
Thank you, Barry. And some practical questions coming in, which I'll run through before we wrap up, which will be shortly. But Andrew, in terms of yourself, where can people find out more about the Healthy Communities, the other initiatives? You mentioned an integration fund. Where can people find out about that work and you know, stuff that's going on with Sláinte Care outside the remit of today?
Sure. We have a website, a Sláinte Care website on the government health website. So we publish twice a year, we publish a report that will give people a progress report update on all of the projects that we're working on, including Healthy Age Friendly Homes, the Integration Fund, all of the projects that we're working on. There's reports that go up regularly. There's also, we have social media channels. So on Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter. We publish, we post updates on projects, things like that as well. So if you Google us, you can find us.
I think that's important, and there's quite a significant capital and current investment that has gone through the Department of Health and Sláinte Care administering those. So it's important to see what the outcomes of those are, and also if there are partners involved today that are looking to access that or see how they would find out more about it. It can all be done through those various channels.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great. Mark, a few questions coming in about the consultation process, Barry, you know, that we talked about, like we have representation from older people. Age Friendly Ireland have consulted with 25,000 older people over the last 11 years. But Mark, one coming in about, I suppose, the consultation is part of the Healthy Age Friendly Homes, and we would have done that as precursory, but a specific one then, how are you managing older people's expectations once they engage with the Healthy Homes Coordinator? And it's interesting because at our oversight group meetings, we're already finding that in some cases, it requires more than one visit. So so I suppose the question is how are you managing that through the program so far?
Yeah, so you're right, Catherine, it's something that we have identified. I suppose in the initial rollout, we were looking at carrying out the needs assessment, and whatever actions kind of were coming out of that needs assessment, we would action. We're finding, and maybe it goes back to that building the relationship and the trust.
Yeah.
You know, as we carry out the needs assessment, it is a comprehensive needs assessment, so there is quite a lot of detail in it. And we will try and action as much as we can through them 4 kind of components of the housing, health, community and technology. So we have found that, again, the programme, we're adjusting to that. We're carrying out a second or third assessment, but we feel that it really is about carrying out the actions to their conclusion for the best outcome for the participant. So if that, you know, if we have calling out 2 or 3 times to build that trust and to get the best outcomes, that's what we will do to assist the older person to remain in their home.
I think that's really important because the criteria is flexible in terms of who can come into this, and the capacity of referrals can come through not just from health, but from policing, from elected representatives, self-referral. And because people have so many varying levels of needs, Age Friendly Ireland presented to the advertising industry last week, and it was interesting to talk about the homogenisation of the group 65 plus. And it doesn't, you know, across all that spectrum, there's so many varying needs. And that's why I think that's responsive. It might require 1 visit, but it might require 3. And that's until those supports are built up. And I think for me, Mark, one of the other things that you've done is you've built the software which can enable the coordinator capture all that to make sure that no stone goes unturned and that they can revisit it. And I think that's going to be a critical component going forward. Would you agree?
Yeah, most definitely. We have the systems in place there, you know, which assist us obviously to carry out the follow-ups. But maybe what we might have to draw attention to is we're coming out of a COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, the coordinators are the first person outside of close family that are visiting the homes of an older person, you know. So we have to kind of take that in consideration when we're talking about supports. You know, no supports have been going out to people within that 2-year period. So we're finding that a lot. And as I mentioned in the presentation, there is that kind of piece where people are feeling that bit isolated. So if the coordinators can help re-engage the participant with their communities, we'll do that and work towards that.
Thanks, Mark. A couple of just practical questions, Sarah, you know, and maybe budget. Will age-friendly housing be available in high-rise buildings? And we know obviously that it can be in blocks of apartments. And also, will it only be built in suburban areas or will it include urban areas? So that's a really good question because people think, oh, it's not applicable for cities, when in fact it's so important. But maybe from a technical perspective, would you take that one, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess in the council, in Limerick in particular, we're limited with our land bank that we can develop social housing within the city centre. So we're looking at obviously brownfield sites, but within suburban areas, and especially through the AHP sector. But sites that are still well connected to local district centres that have a bus connection. So it's really important that you know, it aligns with our compact growth agenda policy nationally under the national planning framework. And I think it's a great way to actually retrofit suburbs, because you're providing for additional, I guess, population growth to support schools and shops that are already in existence. And just to answer the query on high-rise buildings, yes, apartment typologies are well suited to right sizing, and especially if there is that provision for universal access and lift access, so that there's nobody relying on a staircase in older years to reach their apartment. It's really important. So yes, brownfield suburban sites are perfect for this type of scheme because it aligns with compact growth policy.
Thank you, Sarah. Very comprehensive. So look at the questions that I feel I think we've tried to bunch them together to give us comprehensive, and I know all of you went above and beyond and gave extra, but if there's anything that hasn't been covered, we will be going through all the questions that have come in to make sure there's no stone left unturned. A lot of questions are asking about the technical guidance document. So I don't know who mentioned the rating tool, but somebody has said, if we wanted to use this and apply this, where is it? All of the resources, the toolkits, the guides are on agefriendlyhomes.ie, or also you can navigate that through agefriendlyireland.ie. But again, we'll be emailing all that out with copies of the presentations. If there are any questions, all my colleagues put their emails up, or you can go through our shared service and you can email them in directly. And again, through social media, you can DM or you can just send a tweet and we'll respond to it. So look, I hope that you have enjoyed today as much as I have. I think it's been a fantastic synopsis. It has really covered the thematic area of housing. And there's so much more going on, but I think we really, got quite a bit in today in terms of technical, practical supports. But I think for me, the outstanding thing is the collaboration across the two departments. I think that's a key element of why this has been so successful. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank our colleagues in the World Health Organization, to all our speakers today, Minister Burke, Alana, my panel here, Mark, Andrew, Barry and Sarah, and everybody that has contributed today. I would like to give a specific mention to Sylvia McCarthy, our Head of Comms, and Anne Rizzo, our Regional Programme Manager, who has the international relations lead for the shared service and has been very, very supportive. To all of you who attended today, I do hope you'll attend our next one, the 14th of December, between 12 and 2 p.m. We'll be back live from the solstice. And the thematic area is community supports and health services. So not a million miles away from housing, but some very different areas that we'll be delivering on and reporting on that day. So I hope that you can register and join us for that day, and that you've enjoyed today as much as I have. Thank you, everybody.